So first, I want to introduce our first speaker, who we're honored to have here today, United States Representative Jeff Miller. He represents Florida's 1st District and serves on the House Armed Services Committee, the House Permanent Selection Committee on Intelligence, and he's the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee. As the chairman of the Veterans Affairs Committee, Representative Miller is responsible for the authorization and oversight of VA. As you know, as I mentioned, VA is the 2nd largest department in the federal government. He's championed numerous tax relief and veterans measures and fought for less government, less taxes, and more personal freedom. We're honored to have Representative Jeff Miller.
Thank you very much. I'm glad you took that glass away. I was beginning to wonder if that was the glass that all the speakers had to drink out of. Thank you for the invitation, Bill. Thank you for what you do, and certainly Concerned Veterans of America for the emphasis that you're placing on issues that are very important. Thank you for everybody that's attending today. I think you're going to learn a lot today. You're going to hear a lot, and hopefully during the panel process, you'll be able to have an opportunity to hear several points of view and hopefully have your input as well. And, you know, we're here basically to talk about the issues that confront the veterans of our country, those that when a call was put out, they answered, and we owe them certain things for taking the charge to wherever they took it. Some obviously were in combat, some were not in combat, but they wore the uniform of this nation. And for that we owe a debt of gratitude to them. And I think that to start off, this is not going to be, as has already been said, beating up on the Department of Veterans Affairs. What our committee has tried to do in a bipartisan way, and I know Senator Burr and his counterpart in the Senate are trying to do the same thing, is work in a transparent way, if you will, get a honest dialogue between the department going with the legislative branch, and then bring in the veteran service organizations to try to be able to see if we can solve some of these problems that exist out there today. You know, Secretary Shinseki has in fact said that by 2015, the backlog of disability claims that is about 850,000 right now, 600,000 of those are over 125 days. He thinks by 2015 that we will have broken the back of the backlog, and in fact we will have 90% accuracy on every claim. It's going to be awful difficult to hit that goal. I laud him for setting a goal. I hope he reaches it. But given the current pattern that's out there, I think it's going to be very difficult to do it. Now, we have seen some movement where they have this plan that's in place that within just a few weeks now, they claim that they're going to have every claim that's over 2 years taken care of. Well, if I'm a veteran and I've been waiting 3, 4, some 5 years for my claim to be adjudicated, and all of a sudden in 60 days you can resolve that claim, something's wrong with the system. And what I'm concerned with is, even though they have mandatory overtime now for a great number of the employees within the VBA, once they get the backlog cleared, if you haven't changed the process, if the leadership processes that are in place aren't changed, we're going to have another backlog again. We've had a lot of focus, and the veteran service organizations in the room today deserve a lot of the credit for bringing that focus to the forefront. Certainly the media has been very helpful. It is interesting when Jon Stewart mentions the Department of Veterans Affairs and the backlog, you know you've probably reached that saturation point out there that everybody has been trying to get to. But this backlog that exists out there today didn't start yesterday. And when you talk to the department, you hear all kinds of excuses as to why the backlog exists. Well, the claims are much more complex. There's more veterans entering into the system. We have the Agent Orange claims that we had to take care of first. And by the way, that was the right thing to do. but it didn't plan very well for the additional work that was going to come into place. And so I don't think it's fair, because the Secretary made that decision, to then use that as an excuse to have the 850,000 claims in backlog right now. But guess what? In 1995, in a budget hearing before the House Committee on Veterans Affairs, the same thing was said about the backlog, which was considerably less, some 200,000 at the time. But the claims were more complex. We had, considerable amount of veterans entering into the system again. And so you keep hearing the same excuses being given over and over again. I think the veteran community and people in this country are tired now of hearing the excuses and seeing the numbers continue to grow and grow. It's time that we see a solution. Now, we can't listen to a complaint from VA that there hasn't been enough money. There's not enough technology available. We don't have the people that we need in order to do it, because in a bipartisan fashion, the House and the Senate over the last decade, and probably prior to that, has given everything that secretaries have asked for, because we think that it is a debt that is owed. And when the President submits the budget and the Secretary comes to the Hill and defends that budget, we have matched that number, and in some cases we have even built up on that number. And so the unfortunate thing is that there's something in the process that isn't working. And my contention has always been, you reward good work, you don't reward bad work. We've seen, as members of the media have pointed out, that one of the things that VA is real good about doing is giving bonuses. Bonuses to individuals, unfortunately, where there have been tremendous failings under their leadership. We have a large veteran hospital that's being built in the Orlando area that is probably going to be $100 million, $150 million over budget before it's finished. It probably is going to be 4 years behind schedule getting built. Yet the gentleman that was in charge of overseeing this just got a bonus from the department. Now, he's retired now. Should have never been put in the position that he's in, because he wasn't qualified to be in that particular position. But then you go to Pittsburgh, and we've been talking, some of us this morning, about the problems that exist in Pittsburgh with Legionella in the water system, and you find out that VA hasn't been transparent with the Congress there either, hasn't been transparent with the patients that have been inside the facilities. Some have contracted illnesses that have caused deaths. And in fact, the gentleman that was in charge of overseeing the medical system there got a bonus. Something's not right. And even the people that don't get bonuses but can't seem to do their job don't get fired. They just get moved. They go somewhere else within the system. It's amazing to me. I went to Dayton a few years ago. There was a dentist there that there were some sanitary issues, sterilization issues that were being dealt with. And what did they do? They just moved him to another facility. They moved him out of the firing line, if you will, and kept him performing dentistry work somewhere else in the country. VA's got to understand that people that won't do their jobs, there are thousands of people standing in line wanting the very same position. People that will go to work every day being thankful for the opportunity to work in the veteran community. Now look, that's not to say that all of the 300,000 employees that are out there today within the Department of Veterans Affairs are not doing a job, because by and large, the vast majority of them are doing great work. They are providing quality health care with quality equipment in great facilities all across this country. But what we're going to talk about today is particularly how do we get this backlog that exists out there resolved. And I've said it before, we owe it to the veterans. The American people expect it to be done. And with the help of my colleague on the Senate side, Richard Burr, we hope, again, in a bipartisan fashion. I can't say this enough. You hear about all the acrimony on the Hill. Probably the committee that there's the least amount of partisanship is VA. Now, it could become very partisan in the way that we can configure bills and, motions to recommit, and they're usually off the table because everybody tries to deal above board and make sure that the veteran community understands that we are trying to look out after their best interests. So my comments today are, Mr. President, please get involved. It's only going to be resolved if somebody takes a leadership role at the very, very top and weighs in and tells the Department of Veterans Affairs that he wants it resolved. I have put in a bill that basically now establishes a commission, just what we need, another commission. Well, if we can't bring collectively all the people to the table to help resolve it, I don't see a solution out there. So, Mr. President, get involved. Mr. Secretary, I ask the Secretary to please be transparent. Please understand that we're not the enemy on the Hill. We are a co-equal branch of government that wants to help you resolve the issues that are out there. And then thirdly, to the veteran service organizations, thank you, but continue to bring information to us, because without that information it becomes very difficult for us to do our job. And to the media that's out there today, keep digging. Keep doing your job, because government has gotten too big, too out of control, and it's time that we try to rein this back in to a manageable state. So with that, thank you so much for inviting me to participate. Unfortunately, Bill, I'm not going to be able to have steak and eggs, but thank you for the honor of being able to participate, and I hope you have a great morning this morning.